and today I'd like to show you my approach to drawing hair like this. Before we get into the video, I would like to thank today's sponsor, which is Kittle. I've worked with Kittle before and I've been using them ever since that sponsorship. I use them for almost every video I make in some capacity. If you don't know what Kittle is a browser-based design platform where you can create designs, layouts, plans right in your browser. It's a super intuitive tool with text editing, vector editing, a pen tool, shape builders, basically everything you need to make both digital and print-ready designs quickly and easy. I personally use Kittle all the time for my thumbnails. For example, here I am dropping in the background and playing around with text and their asset libraries. I really like the freedom that Kittle has. There is so much you can play around with and test out, and different styles that I would never even have thought of to make or try out. It's just readily available with Kittle. And since Kittle's assets are all vector based, it means you can transform, design, warp them as you want without losing any quality. So if you're interested in giving Kittle a try, maybe something in this video caught your attention, or you've been looking to design something, you can sign up for Kittle for free today using the link in my description, and don't forget you can use my code BLUEBISCUITS YT for 25% off on Kittle's plans. Thank you again to Kittle for sponsoring this video and for the Kittle team being so kind that side. And now onto the video. When you first start with hair, it might look really lumpy or flat, almost like it's floating there instead of actually being attached to the head. Hair itself isn't a flat object or shape, but when you start art, everything kind of sits on top of each other kind of awkwardly, with no sense of gravity or flow or even shape. Let me show you some steps to make drawing it easier, from hair shape to strands to flow, the anatomy, how to achieve perspective with the hair, and how to stylize it. This tutorial will be in two parts, so this part 1, will cover hair anatomy, how to think about it, draw it, and line it, and part 2 will be about how to color, shade, and render the hair. So I'm sure we all know what hair looks like. If not, here are some examples. If you look closely, everything has a line that the hair falls to. This is called hair flow. Hair flow is the direction that the hair falls and moves. It's a natural line that follows gravity or the environment. Big clumps of hair have a main flow, while smaller sections inside of them can have their own secondary flow. This is what gives the hair personality and makes it look natural. When you're a beginner, you try and emulate this flow, but if you don't have a very good understanding as to why this hair moves in this direction, it can look very stiff and out of place. So like I mentioned, there are two main hair flows. There's from gravity and then there is from the environment. From gravity, I mean if there is no environmental play at place. So then the hair will fall down naturally to the ground. If you have curly hair, this could maybe be a bit different because of the texture, but I will get into textures later. But just to understand, overall hair will fall downwards depending on how heavy it is. So longer hair will have longer hair flow going down, while shorter hair will have less weight for it to fall down to gravity. The environment can also play a part in the flow. So if the wind is blowing, the natural flow line will go with the wind, or if it's underwater, it depends on the current and where the water is taking the hair, but it will still have a natural flow line. I like to think of the flow line like a wavy S line that follows everything. So line work will follow, shading will follow, rendering and shape will follow this line. If you look closely, you can see the flow in this image here. So if you are able to see it here, you're able to study it and understand it better. To be able to draw flow in your own pictures, you have to let go of hard logic and let your hand go across the canvas. Because if your line or your idea of the line is rigid, your hair is going to come out rigid as well. Hair is made out of a lot of little strands, but drawing every strand will take forever and doesn't quite suit every art style. So what most artists do is they group hair into solid sections or clumps, which can look like this. This doesn't just make it easier to draw and stylize, it also makes it easier for the viewer's eyes to read and understand what you're trying to portray. For example, can you spot the hair sections in my character over here? If you can't, they are here, here, and here. See, my style is very simple, so I have simplified these hair sections into bigger clumps. But you can also have larger hair sections, which will give you a more stylization like this. So as I mentioned with different styles, here's a really good example. Scott Pilgrim, this is an art style that uses very cartoony, thick, solid hair sections, while the artist like May uses very thin, smaller sections, but if you look nicely, you can still see the 3D shapes in her work. These hair sections that look like this are, in my head, solid 3D shapes. You can think of hair like a ribbon. So it has an underside if it crosses over each other like this. I like to do this with a lot of loose strands, so if there's like strands kind of flinging around, I like to give them undersides. And then when hair goes up and then down like this, so maybe where undercuts are or like bangs, there will be like an underside, and I like to add a little bit of darker colors there to add a bit of depth. And that also means that these shapes will have angles. This will make it easier for when you're drawing the hair in different angles, because now if you understand that this shape on their head has also different sides, it becomes easier to visualize. Let's talk about turning this shape into hair. Hair sections have their own flow depending on the texture. This is the secondary flow that I mentioned earlier. This means what kind of hair type does this character have. So straighter hair will have less natural flow and kink, and will have very like loose S strands. So if you look nicely, there's not a lot of like curves to it. But the more and more curly the hair strand gets, the more kinkier and like tighter this S strand or flow will get. Now, with understanding that each different kind of hair type will have its own flow, you can also add this for the environmental flow or just the overall flow. So let's say if the wind blows and you have curly hair, it is going to have the tight curls, so that flow, and it will also have the environmental flow. So these two will kind of work together. Let's talk about how you can study this that I've explained and how you can actually draw it. First, you should determine the flow of both. You can learn how different hair textures act. Here is a chart that I've made, but you can also do your own studies by redrawing different hairs and then determining what kind of flow line it has and how you can put this into your style. So draw the flow, think mainly of an S shape always. When you draw, follow the arrow with those loose, quick strokes. Add thickness and like kinks where needed, but keep the base very simple. Make sure you're adding enough width between each line so you can like see that it's a 3D object. I mean like these spaces between, because if everything is super close to each other, it can get a lot for the eyes. These lines do not have to be parallel from each other, they can come closer and further. It's like flowy, so you can kind of just have fun with it. Once you have like this like solid section, you can go in and add some like secondary flow. So this will be like hair strands. I like to add them, not too many of them, but I do like to add them here and there just to add a little bit more shape, but you know, the overall shape is still readable like the original shape. I also like adding these little open spaces between. I think it just adds a lot to the silhouette. Here are some tips for drawing the strands. Keep the strands clean and empty so the mind can fill in the rest. If the hair has too many lines or shadows, it can become overwhelming to look at or even become the center focal point of the art piece, which is not always what you want. Where the hair ends, there will be a point. It always ends in a smaller point as the hair starts thinning, so like this. I always add these to where the hair starts ending, or if they have short hair, I will add it around different places. So unless the character has lots of layers, try not to add these at random points, as they can add a lot of volume and erase the shape from the hair. So let's get into how you can add this to the head and make it look natural. So you'll have to know a bit of anatomy. The anatomy that you'll have to know is the skull. Like I mentioned earlier, when you're starting out, hair can look out of place, almost like it's floating there. Hair is a 3D form. It's impacted by the form that it sits on, which is the skull, which is a round shape. So understanding this will help give the hair perspective and a sense of depth. The 3D shape the hair relies on for shape is the skull, which you can simplify into a circle. The skull can be big or small depending on the art style that you're going for, but it's always important to understand regardless of what your art style looks like. If your skull sketch or even just your understanding of this 3D space looks proper, it's easier to lay out the hair. So the skull has a front, a back and sides where the hair attaches to. So this means that the hair will always be in perspective. So different lengths and different pieces will be seen from different angles. Some hair strands will be visible from some angles and some won't, depending on how far it is from the viewer's eyes or its length. So I like to deal the head into these 3 sections. The front, which is like the bangs, the middle, and then the back where the mullet is. From different angles, these sections will be more or less visible. I picture these sections wrapping around the skull. For each of these sections, you can add the hair strands to them. So if there's fronts or bangs, you can add these hair sections, which is these 3D shapes, to the parts that I've explained here. And from there, you can determine how you want the hair section to flow. Now, adding hair sections to this you can do 1 or 2 hair sections if it's for your art style. Like I showed you, Scott Pilgrim has a very limited amount of hair sections that they add to their characters, or you can add a lot of them and achieve something like this art style or even my art style. It all depends on preferences and what you want to achieve. Another thing to keep in mind is the forehead and where it stops. So I like to determine it with this line just coming across over here, as it's important to help understand where the hair starts from, and you can avoid giving them the Gojo hairline. So hair comes straight from the skull out, so it'll always come almost straight up. If the hair is longer, it will fall victim to gravity and it will curve like this. Allowing some overall space from the skull is important, but try and keep the hair shape as close to the skull's shape as possible. So the hairstyle has to have this curve following the skull, and you can easily see that this art piece over here didn't have a skull to reference, so the hair kind of just goes off to the side, but this one here has a solid idea of the hair. As well as with the hair coming out, you can easily determine a fringe like this, because you can see it comes out and then down. Editing Bloo here, I would like to add onto this, when there is a crown or a parting, the flow will part away from there. So a crown will part away in a circle and sides will part outwards from the original part. Okay, now back to this video. I know along with this, drawing the back of the head can be a little bit tricky. A trick I learned is to just end it in a point and then flow downwards if the hair allows it. Like I mentioned before, there are endless ways to approach hairstyling, but the main ones I use is number 1, sizes of the hair sections. Smaller sections make the style look more detailed and fine and more realistic, but larger sections can make it easier to understand and make it look very cartoony. Number 2, the shape of the skull. Big skulls will allow for more hair overall, but will look more cartoony, while smaller skulls will look more realistic but not allow that much hair stylization. That doesn't mean you can't have a lot of hair on more realistic styles. More realistic styles will obviously have smaller hair sections. You understand. I hope you can see what I'm trying to show. So, and then number 3, overall section shape. I notice a lot of artists have their own unique defining shape of the hair sections, which we can kind of just see, which makes it faster to draw and also makes it muscle memory, so it becomes muscle memory after a while. Here's my personal approach to drawing hair. I love adding fluffy circles to the shapes of the hair strands, ensuring large and simple lines without any details. I also include a lot of loose strands to make the hair look less pointy. I keep the strands thick and fluffy instead of thin. Always make sure to end the hair with these points, so they're kind of always these 1 to 2 or 2, 3, 4 points that I end them in. Hello, editing Blue here. Something I forgot to say is another method that you can use, which is called the silhouette method. Basically, you grab a brush that has fun opacity. So I like the one that goes thin, thick, thin, kind of like a hair strand. And then I use that brush and I just lay out where the hair will fall, keeping in mind the strands, all the rules that I've explained. It's the only difference is you're not drawing it like line for line, you're just laying it out from there. Okay, bye. I hope this helps. The next video will be how to shade, color, and render the hair. That will be posted in 2 weeks after this one. So I just want to thank my channel members. I want to thank my Patreons for their continued support. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the lovely folks, for all the fan arts that you made, and thank you for sticking to the end. I hope this video has helped. I understand that hair can be a bit tricky at first, so hopefully you picked up something from here. I really appreciate it, and I wish you the best with your art journey. Remember, it's okay to not be perfect. Remember, it's okay to not be perfect at the craft. It's okay to not like what you make, and it's also okay to love what you make. It's all a journey, and there are ups and downs. I'm excited to see what you create. Until then, thank you again to Kittle for your support and allowing me to provide my viewers with the tutorial, and thank you for watching.